House Democrats called on the vice president to remove President Trump through the 25th Amendment as they prepared to vote on a resolution to impeach the president. Meanwhile, Trump emerged for the first time since his Twitter ban and refused to take any responsibility at all for inciting a violent riot at the Capitol. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. The House is preparing to impeach Trump for inciting an insurrection, which would make him the only president ever to be impeached twice. He'll also be the only president who lost the popular vote the first time and re-election the second time, in addition to being impeached. A record number of Americans went to the polls to boot him from office, and his job approval is now down to 33%. His name will be etched in the congressional record and in history books forever as a seditionist, an aspiring tyrant, and the worst, most dangerous president we've ever had. He could very well be permanently disqualified from holding office in the future, arrested and tried for sedition. He's been banned from so many social media platforms, he's going to have to start hiding his hateful rhetoric and Yelp reviews. His longtime bank is refusing to do business with him, and he could even be held liable for civil damages in addition to being prosecuted. Oh, and his wife won't hold his hand. Well, one of them won't. And yet, knowing Trump, none of that will matter as much to him as this.
New England Patriots head coach Bill Belichick declining the civilian honor, the Presidential Medal of Freedom, with President Trump set to award it later this week. Instead, Belichick put out a statement saying, in part, the tragic events of last week occurred, and the decision has been made not to move forward with the award.
The fallout of the attack on the Capitol continues for President Trump, who has now lost his relationship with the Professional Golfers Association. The PGA announced it was moving its 2022 championship away from Trump National Golf Club in Bedminster. The PGA says holding the championship there would be, quote, detrimental to its brand.
Well. Once again, big golf tries to silence conservative. First it's the media, then it's big tech. Now it's famous Antifa leftist Bill Belichick and the PGA tearing down our country. Don't Belichick and the PGA know that what we need right now is healing and unity? How dare they hurt Mr. Trump's feelings and the feelings of 74 million Americans by taking away his precious golf tournament from his private resort. Don't they know how much those hardworking real Americans love to sit home on a Sunday and watch the PGA polyester fashion show by a bunch of trust fund semi-athletes named Cameron and Bryson and Brooks? Taking golf away from Trump is like taking away Freddy Krueger's claws. Without them, he's just a dude with a messed up face who looks bad in hats. Seriously though, you know you're toxic when a guy who looks like this thinks you're bad for his brand. How does he get to games? Tornado? Well, that's where things are for Trump. Then today he emerged in public for the first time since losing his ability to tweet. And as the nation continues to process the deadly insurrection he incited and the ongoing threats from right-wing terrorists, the president refused to take any responsibility for his role in the riot, choosing instead to lash out at Democrats.
We want no violence, never violence. We want absolutely no violence. And on the impeachment, it's really a continuation of this impeachment is causing tremendous anger. And you're doing it, and it's really a terrible thing that they're doing. For Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer to continue on this path, I think it's causing tremendous danger to our country, and it's causing tremendous anger. I want no violence.
I incited violence, even though I want no violence. But if you impeach me for inciting violence, there will be violence. No violence, but also there will be violence. We don't want people to be angry, but also they should be angry and dangerous. Anger and danger, those are the two key words. No violence, but anger. And danger and violence, but hold the violence. I want no violence. Seriously, he could have just gone with, do what I say and nobody gets hurt. Seriously, is he trying to get impeached a third time? Is he going for an Iron Man streak where he commits an impeachable offense every day until he leaves office? Does he think this is Quiznos? If he gets impeached 10 times, the 11th is on the House? Trump then spoke again to reporters before he got on his flight to Texas, and this time he insisted his speech to the violent mob, whipping them into a frenzy and inciting them to ransack the Capitol, was actually totally fine.
What is your role in what happened at the Capitol? What is your personal responsibility?
So if you read my speech, and many people have done it, and I've seen it both in the papers and in the media, on television, it's been analyzed, and people thought that what I said was totally appropriate. But they've analyzed my speech and my words and my final paragraph, my final sentence, and everybody to the T thought it was totally appropriate.
No one thought that. What do you mean they analyzed it? I mean, I heard the speech and it wasn't exactly James Joyce's Ulysses. If you heard it, you analyzed it. Trump is actually doubling down and defending himself after inciting an insurrection against the Capitol. And just to be clear, in case it needs any more clarity, Trump didn't just incite the crowd by telling them to march to the Capitol and fight and show strength. He encouraged and enjoyed the scenes of violence and sedition. In fact, we know from new reporting that even as lawmakers and people inside the building were pleading with Trump to send help, he refused. And his aides couldn't even tear him away from the TV.
A behind-the-scenes report on the president's activities during the riot that he helped set off. Multiple sources tell the Washington Post Trump was busy watching the violence on TV and couldn't be reached, not even by close allies in Congress, calling him desperately in fear for their own lives.
The Post spoke to 15 people with knowledge of Trump's actions during those 6 hours of mob rule and found Trump to be a man who didn't care, even as Republican lawmakers begged him to speak out.
There's new Washington Post reporting. He was hard to reach, and you know why? Because it was live TV, said one close Trump advisor. If it's TiVo, he just hits pause and takes the call. If it's live TV, he watches it. And he was just watching.
Fiddle. Trump would just call one in. Can we get a fiddler in here? It's just more fun with the fiddle. It's honestly hard to articulate just how sadistic and sociopathic this is. People were calling and begging him to help as violent right-wing terrorists were ransacking the Capitol, trying to overthrow the government, and Trump was watching with all the glee of Hannibal Lecter digging into a fresh spleen. In fact, it was apparently even worse than that. According to the Washington Post, Trump had not wanted to include the final instruction to stay peaceful in his tweet during the riot. He wanted his supporters to disrupt the counting of the electoral votes through violence. And even when his aides managed to get through to him, Trump refused to help because he was enjoying it so much.
He was engaging with aides as this was all going on. They were interrupting, telling him that he had to do something. They were interrupting, telling him that the Capitol was being overrun by his supporters. He was well aware of it. He was watching it. He was pleased because it was people fighting on his behalf. He was pleased because he liked the scene, and he was pleased because it was delaying the certification of the Electoral College vote. And those are the reasons why this happened. He knew what was happening. He was back and forth from the small dining room where he watches television off the Oval Office to the Resolute desk. He just didn't want to do anything.
First of all, he just didn't want to do anything. Sounds like the back of Melania's jackets. And you leave her alone. And her. Your salacious gossip stops today. Second, take that in for just a second. The president was watching a violent mob overrun the Capitol in an attempt to overthrow democracy and install him as an unelected tyrant and enjoying it. And even after that, large numbers of Republicans stood by him in his attempt to overturn the election. But guys, Republicans just want unity. Come on, guys. They want us all to gather around in a drum circle with a hacky sack, pass a joint around, and forget they tried to incite a violent insurrection against the United States. That's what Republicans are defending when they refuse to get behind impeachment. In fact, as we speak, the FBI is warning of even more possible violence in D.C. and all 50 state capitals. The Washington Monument is closed for 2 weeks due to credible threats of violence. And the Capitol Police have briefed House Democrats on 3 terrifying plots to overthrow the government. And Republicans have responded by doing what they do best, making themselves the victims.
Big tech launching a coordinated and kind of a preemptive strike on the president, the First Amendment, many of his supporters, banning them from social media permanently.
The big tech companies in banning not just President Donald Trump, but cracking down on conservative speech.
Big tech continues to suppress conservative speech.
I lost, over the weekend, 55,000 Twitter followers.
Republicans have no way to communicate.
Imagine that. You wake up and you're suddenly unpopular with the wrong person, and you can't communicate. And you have no representation. And you can't fly in an airplane. And you can't put your money in the bank.
Imagine that. You take part in one little insurrection to overthrow the United States government. Suddenly you can't communicate. You can't fly in an airplane. You can't wear sandals to hula hands. You can't park your BMW across 2 handicapped buffet shrimp in your pockets, even though the all-you-can-eat sign never specified when and where you can eat it. And when you skip out on the check and tell the waiter you have a legal right to this shrimp based on the Constitution, a document you have never read, he chases you down and takes your license plate and calls 911 and tells him you're a shrimp. And the cops come to your house and confiscate the shrimp from your fridge and embarrass you in front of your stepson and his friends while they play Tony Hawk Pro Skater and Xbox and laugh at you and call you a shrimp dweeb. And you say, "Stop calling me that, Tyler." And then he and his friends, they push you down the stairs. Imagine that. My God. Are these people whiny, hysterical lunatics who never miss an opportunity to make themselves the victims, even after a deadly insurrection at the nation's capital? Like Congressman Matt Gaetz and Jim Jordan, 2 seditionists who aided and abetted the president's deranged lie that led to this insurrection and who voted to side with the mob and overturn the election even after the Capitol was ransacked. Gaetz and Jordan went on Fox News last night not to complain about the erosion of our democracy, but to complain about Twitter.
If they can cancel a president with the second impeachment and what they've done to the president with the social media platforms, if they can cancel a president, imagine what they can do to the 75 million people who supported President Trump in this election. That's what's so dangerous.
These people want to be able to control what we see and how we behave, and constrain speech in this way, I think is very damaging to the country.
These two look like a frat guy and a serial killer. You guys know my friends, Axe Body Spray and Axe. These schools literally tried to cancel the votes of 81 million Americans, but now they lose some Twitter followers after a violent insurrection and they're whining about cancel culture, pretending to care about unity, like Florida Senator Rick Scott, who insisted that Joe Biden, rather than the current president or any of the Republicans supporting him, should be solely responsible for seeking unity.
If you go talk to American families, I talk to people every day, what do they want? They want a positive message. Joe Biden should be excited about the fact that he's going to become the president next week and should have a positive message, but he's a hypocrite. He says, oh, I want unity, but I want to call my opponents Nazis. I want unity, but if you want to go forward with impeachment, go ahead. I mean, this is not what Americans want.
Dude, go back to your milk bath. What about the 81 million Americans who voted for him? Do you think what they wanted was for their votes to be thrown out by a handful of Republican congressmen? Something you tried to do even after the mob stormed the Capitol. So sick of these assholes calling for unity after doing arguably the most divisive thing you can do in a democracy, and that's overturn an election. And doing it after a riot. And why is it that only Biden is the one who has to seek unity? Why don't you do something unifying, like resign or apologize or start every sentence about tone with no one was more divisive than President Trump, and I see that now and I feel terrible for supporting him. Is that so hard? Or how about Fox host Brian Kilmeade, who had this to say about how divisive impeaching an insurrectionist president would be?
By the way, you know what the theme to Joe Biden's inauguration is, and maybe his first 4 years? American United. A president that's going to be at Mar-a-Lago.
I agree, he shouldn't be at Mar-a-Lago. When it happens, he should be in jail, or at the very least, stuck in a sand trap as the only golfer in a canceled tournament. Someone help me crawl out of this thing. Tiger? Rory? Phil? Dorf? Oh, I knew you wouldn't forgive me, Dorf. Give me your hand. Oh, no, don't throw more sand on me, Dorf. Oh, no, not you too, Dorf. Oh, no. I love Dorf on golf, but you know what's really funny? Dorf on insurrection. Also, you know what else guarantees America won't be united? Inciting a riot to overturn an election. How about you guys look inward and take some responsibility, express maybe a scintilla of regret for your role in this? Maybe that would help foster unity. I mean, I don't think we're ever going to be friends, but maybe we be roommates who don't like each other but cohabitate thanks to passive-aggressively writing our names on food. These guys are like cheating husbands who get sued for divorce and then say, what? You want half my stuff? There should be a time for unity and healing. It's not my fault your sister's hotter than you. The president gleefully incited a deadly insurrectionist riot to overturn democracy, refused to do anything about it, then insisted that his speech was appropriate, and instead of taking even an ounce of responsibility for that, Republicans are making themselves the victims as they always do. The only way to stop this is to demand accountability, remove Trump from office, and triumph for sedition. It won't be too hard to find him. Just put out a bulletin for
a president that's going to be at Mar-a-Lago.
This has been a closer look. God's Love You Deliver cooks and brings over 2 million meals a year to men, women, and children living with HIV, AIDS, cancer, and other serious illnesses, and they need your help now more than ever. If you're watching this online, you can hit the donate button. Stay safe, wash your hands, wear a mask. We love you.